Here we go.
Let's pretend we're on a roller coaster. Raise your hands. We're going up the roller coaster. Okay. Woo! All right. We're ramping up. We're going up. All right. Hello, everybody. We are locked and loaded and getting ready to start the Barton webinar, and glad that you're making it. You're joining us today. I'm Joe Barton with Barton Publishing, and Dr. Scott Saunders is here, and he is excited to take your questions here pretty soon. And Leslie Prinz is here running the controls and getting Facebook set up, and eventually we'll be on YouTube. So yeah, this is good stuff. Today we're going to be talking about, drum roll, supplements. All right, and let's see. So if you're here live, hop on in the chat and tell us how many different nutritional supplements do you take in a given week. Now that could be, you might have 15 to 20, you might have 3, you might have 0. Tell us how many natural supplements, like non-medications, like I have CinnaChroma, I have turmeric, I have some zinc. Tell us in the chat, how many? You don't have to tell us what you take necessarily. You're welcome to, but tell us what you take.
I had a really interesting patient. She came into me with 2 shopping bags filled with supplements. And they were all these pill bottles and like protein and all that other stuff. And she says, I am so tired of popping pills. I'd spend all day popping pills. Either I'm reading about vitamins, or I'm taking vitamins, or I'm organizing shit. One of those little things that's 7 across and 4 down. And she would like open up each little window and then dump this one and that one and then open up the other one. Oh my gosh, it was crazy what she was doing with her supplements. And so she wanted to know, okay, what are the ones that I need to take? So we went through everything, and we ended up with like 4 of them that this is a good idea. You should probably supplement with these. Most of the other ones were either redundant, like she doubled up on them, or unnecessary entirely, because she had a good diet and she was, relatively healthy. So, so she said, what am I going to do with all those? I spent thousands of dollars on that. I said, here's what you do. You take that big protein jug and you empty it out, because you're not going to need that stuff anymore. And then you take all those other vitamins and open them up and dump them in the big jar, shake up that big bottle, and then take 1 or 2 out every day and take those. That way you're going to get you're going to get all the benefits without any of the risks or problems associated with them.
That's a good
idea. I
idea.
thought that was a great solution.
Yeah, and you save space in the cupboard. I know my wife.
Oh yeah.
I drive my wife a little bit crazy with all of the bottles of supplements and protein and different things that I have all over the place.
So can I start out with a supplement thing?
Let's do it.
Okay, new study just came out on COVID-19. This was not an old study with flu. This is with the current pandemic in the Philippines. They tested people. They had the people who had normal vitamin D levels versus the people who had subnormal vitamin D levels. In other words, deficient. And the difference was huge. Among the people that had normal vitamin D levels, 89% had a mild illness or no symptoms at all. Among the people with low vitamin D levels, 89% had a severe illness or were in the ICU.
Oh, wow.
So among the 200 that had normal vitamin D, only 1 ended up in the ICU, and that's because he had other issues. So you know what? This is big. Supplements are not useless. And if you compare that to the statistics on wearing a mask, for example, the best studies with people who were constantly wearing masks and never touching them and are really careful about it, you can never get better than 20%. In other words, you still have an 80% chance of contracting the virus while you're wearing a mask. So the mask doesn't protect you. It diminishes your risk by a small margin, I think a small margin. Whereas you can reverse that and diminish your risk by a big margin in the 80 to 90% range just by adding vitamin D. So that's why that CinnaChroma has 5,000 units of vitamin D. If you take 2 of those a day, then you're protected. Well, you're the best you can do for protection. It's not. There's no guarantees in life.
Yeah, right. Wow.
But at least it's reliable and predictable.
Yeah. So we should have had the title for the webinar, Vitamin D is better than wearing a mask.
Yeah. You could do that. Well, I don't know if we want to put that out there. We might.
Yeah, I probably not.
I don't know. Yeah, you'll get shut down quickly for saying that.
Next week, coming from jail.
You can't.
I'll have a new background.
You can't teach the truth. That would be awful.
Well, Leslie, I think people are wondering, why is Leslie in her closet?
So those of you who have been on the webinar know that I do often change backgrounds. But the reason is because we sold our home. We lived somewhere for a few months, and now we just bought an acreage with an old farmhouse. And so I'm kind of figuring out where is best for me to be. You actually are in my office, my other business, I guess. I actually sell clothing online. And so you're not in my closet. You're actually in my office, which is awesome.
Your clothing store.
Yeah.
Well, I like that blue blouse over there. I'll have one.
Yeah. Well, it's a cardigan, and I can ship one to your wife. So
you would look good in that, Dr. Saunders. So Leslie,
blue's my color.
How can, like, if people want to connect with you in your store and get some clothes, how can they connect with you?
Oh, that is so sweet. So I do most everything, I guess, on Facebook. So I have a shopping group. It's called Flora May. That was my grandmother's name. And you can also find my website at shopfloramay.com. So thank you.
Flora May, for those like myself that aren't good at spelling sometimes.
Yep, Flora. I'll type it here. Actually, I'll put a direct link both on Facebook and in this. But
excellent.
Yeah.
And these clothes will help reduce your blood sugar numbers, correct?
I mean, I'm not going to say that live, but they'll bring you joy. They'll bring you joy.
That's important.
Which lowers your stress, and that lowers your blood sugar.
Yeah, there we go.
There's a connection.
You guys are the best.
All right. Well, hey, let's keep talking now about supplements and a little housekeeping. So this is the Barton webinar where we provide this as a free service, free webinar to our mainly towards our customers that become customers of one of our products, which our best-selling product is the Diabetes Solution Kit. And this is the printed workbook copy that you can, that a lot of people already have. But if you're wondering how to find out more about our products, just go to bartonwebinar.com. And that's where we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about some of our own supplements and our Facebook page and YouTube channel and all that. If you're watching this on YouTube later, like recorded, then go ahead and click subscribe. But also go on over to bartonwebinar.com and register so that you can join us live on our Zoom calls. And we love to get your questions and feedback. And every week we leave an ample amount of time for you to ask questions. And Dr. Saunders is awesome at answering them. And we're going to get to that in a little bit here. So if you do have some questions and you're live, put them in the chat, put them in the Q&A section. We want to help you get through any roadblocks or obstacles that you're facing in this journey of reversing type 2. And yeah, that's what we're here for. So thanks for joining us. Now back to Dr. Saunders. Let's talk some more about supplements.
Okay, so always think of supplements as food. It's just food. And how do we get the nutrients our body needs? Well, we eat. And before we knew about these nutrients, deficiency diseases were very common. This is what doctors dealt with all the time. I don't think I've ever seen a case of scurvy, but that was like a daily event to a doctor in the 1700s. I don't think I've ever seen a case of beriberi, which is a vitamin B deficiency, or kwashiorkor, which is a protein deficiency, or rickets, which is a vitamin D deficiency. These were common illnesses. These were things that doctors dealt with back before they knew about nutrition. And these kind of diseases were, throughout the history of mankind, these were a problem. So we now know enough about nutrition that we get really good nutrition. People live longer now than they've ever lived in the history of the world. We have more people living into their 80s and 90s. The fastest growing segment of the population is the over 100 segment of the population. We really live longer, and a lot of that is because of good nutrition. We don't have these deficiencies. When people don't realize this, but when a ship would go out on a long voyage, they would come back with half the crew, the other half having died of scurvy on the way, and they throw them overboard. And eventually they figured out what the problem was, the vitamin C, but they didn't know it was vitamin C. But a ship's doctor found out that a lime, this little green lime, could cure scurvy. But the doctor said, no way, that's too simplistic. Scurvy is a horrible disease. You can't cure it with some stupid little fruit. That's not gonna work. So for 50 years, 50 years, the doctors pushed it away. And finally, it was the ship's captains that said, I am sick and tired of throwing my crew overboard and trying to find new crew and coming back to port with half my crew. I need a crew. So I'm putting lime juice and everybody's going to drink it. And the limeys, they became called, which were the ship's crews, became known as limeys because they had to drink this lime juice, and they would line everybody up. And the limeys didn't like it. It was sour. They hated the lime juice. They didn't put sugar in it and make it taste good, like like a limeade or something like that. So what were the ship's captains doing for their crew? Well, they were supplementing a vitamin C. And now we know what it was, but back then they didn't know what was in the lime that was curing the scurvy and preventing the scurvy. But now ships would sail out and come back with the entire crew. Not one died of scurvy. But it was really interesting. Have you ever seen movies of like limeys, their teeth are all rotted out? You know why?
Why?
The lime juice is acid.
Oh.
And they drinking that acid every day would eat away their teeth. So literally their teeth would kind of rot out of their mouths from all that acid. That's what soda pop is too. It's about the same pH as acid. So people who drink soda pop, they get rotted out teeth for the same reason. Anyway, so the ship's captains learned to supplement. So Magellan sailed out and had to replace his crew 3 times to get around the world. They don't tell you that in the history books. Yeah. But now we know why all of that happened. So the COVID-19 thing, we're on the same issue. Nothing's changed since the 1700s when the doctors were saying, that's too simplistic. You can't cure a horrible disease like scurvy with a little thing like a lime. Well, what are they saying now? Vitamin D, no way. That's nothing. That's not going to work. This is a real pandemic here. Well, guess what? I told everybody else in the Philippines, they just did a study that showed that vitamin D was clearly better. If you had normal vitamin D levels, your chances were 1 in 200 of the severe of not getting a severe case. In other words, you were 89% had a very mild case, and then another 10%-ish had a moderate case, whereas it was exactly the opposite if you had low vitamin D levels. 89% had a severe case, and only less than 10% had a mild case. So vitamin D works, and it really works. It's not just this little 2% that you get from a mask, or 5% or whatever, depending on the study you look at. Some are up to 20%. a mask. That means you have an 80% chance of still getting it, just as if you had no mask on at all. So about the same. So really, you know, mask wearing is so much minimal compared to vitamin D, and yet, what are the doctors saying? Wear a mask. Well, not the doctors. Actually, the doctors I talk to say, you know, this mask wearing is kind of ridiculous. But you know what? That's what the politicians say. So we wear masks because the politicians are telling us, and we do what our leaders tell us to do.
So I have a couple of questions. One with the masks are they less effective because basically you can get the virus on your hands and then you're touching your face or eyes or whatever and you're getting it that way? Or is it like, or is the virus actually going through the mask when you're breathing it, or if you're in touch with the droplets as they talk about?
There are too many factors that we don't know. We don't know everything. There are some viruses like hepatitis C that people have no known contacts, no way of getting it, and yet they have it. We don't know how things are really spread. We assume direct contact because it seems like that's at least part of the story, that you have to have direct contact. But when people put a mask on, they can still detect the virus, the RNA. They take the air out of the room, they filter it out, and they look for the viral RNA, and they find it in the air in the room, even if you're wearing a mask. There was one study, at least one, there are several studies that show there are fewer viral RNA particles, copies of viral RNA in people if they're wearing a mask than if they're not, which is why they say, please wear a mask. And I'm not saying don't wear a mask, I'm saying the mask gives you this much benefit. Okay, that's something, it's not nothing, but don't think you're protected because you're wearing a mask. Do the vitamin D, that actually protects you. Your chances of going in the ICU are slim to none if you have adequate levels of vitamin D.
Could almost call that an inner mask. I like that.
Yeah.
Marketing idea. Right? Okay. So my next question is, so we see like age is definitely, there's differences, like older people typically have more, higher incidence of severe cases from COVID. So are older people typically more deficient in vitamin D? So younger people have more vitamin D, is that correlated?
I don't know about the age and vitamin D. That would be a good thing to research. That may have something to do with it. But I don't know. If you think about it, I don't know. Young people out in the sun, running, doing exercises, playing sports, and all that. Older people sitting in the house watching TV. I don't know.
Right.
But
yeah.
I'm a medical director of a nursing home, and in the nursing home, everyone who comes in gets 50,000 vitamin D once a week, just as the course of being there. Why? Because we have courtyards that people can go outside into the courtyard and catch some rays, but not very many people take advantage of that. Mostly they're laying in bed, sitting in bed, getting in their wheelchair, going around the facility, and they're not getting sunshine. They're not going to get vitamin D. So we supplement that.
Yeah. Well, let's see. We've got a few questions that have come in here that are related to vitamin D. So this is from our friend Krish. Thanks, Dr. Saunders, for clarifying the facts about vitamin D and its protective effects against coronavirus. I have a concern about the food itself. For example, what we can eat and what we cannot. Each of the nutritionists have their own list, and thus what one proposes, the other one discourages. You're getting very, looking in my eyeballs there. Thus, we're left with a very few or even nothing at all. This kind of misinformation is unacceptable. Could you kindly clarify this enigma, and this will be of much help to the community?
Okay, thanks, Krish. Okay, food, that's a big thing. So remember, nutrition comes from food. And except for vitamin D, by the way, there's no food that contains vitamin D. It's not a vitamin. It's actually, you make it in your body. You make the pre-vitamin D that comes out in your sweat. And then the sunshine turns that into the active form, and then you reabsorb that through your skin. So that's not really a vitamin. It's actually a hormone. It's a steroid hormone. But because it requires the sun, that we either have to get sunshine or we have to take a supplement. So those are the two options for vitamin D. So aside from that, all the other nutrients are food-based. They come from your food. Vitamin C comes from your food. Vitamin A comes from your food. Vitamin E, all the other ones, that's where you get your nutrition is from food. So nutritionists are like, eat this, don't eat that. Okay, so the simplest way to look at this is eat good food. Eat fresh food as much as you can. Eat fruits and vegetables. Eat a variety of food. You know, one of the reasons why sailors got scurvy, what did they live on? They had hardtack, which was just a grain that was like a biscuit that was dried that they could store on a ship. And then they had a meat that was dried, also like a beef jerky kind of thing. And neither of those have any vitamin C. You can get other vitamins from it, and minerals and stuff like that. The hardtack had B vitamins. They didn't get beriberi. They got scurvy because there was nothing in there that contained vitamin C. Now, here's something interesting. You can eat a pure meat diet and get every single nutrient you need on a what do they call it? A carnivore diet now?
Yep.
But you have to eat raw meat, because the raw meat has vitamin C, but once you cook it, you destroy the vitamin C. So to get all of your nutrition, you kind of need a variety. You can eat a purely vegetarian diet, but you're going to miss vitamin B12 because there's no vegetable or fruit that contains vitamin B12. It only comes from bacteria in the gut of animals, including humans, everybody, animals. So it used to be that fertilizer was all dung, and since it was made in the bowels, they would fertilize their fields with dung, and then vitamin B would be part of their food source because of all the dung they were eating. Now we fertilize with chemical fertilizers, and nobody gets B12 if they're on a vegetarian diet. So people will have ideas of it has to be all vegetables, purely vegan diet, or it has to be a keto diet or a carnivore diet or whatever. But I'll tell you this, variety is better. All biological systems work better on variety than anything else. You know, when the apples come ripe on the tree, live on apples and nothing else, that's fine. But then you're going to have something else when there's no apples around. So you're going to need some other vegetable when it becomes ripe. So if you think of seasons of eating, that's a really good way to look at diets. And so you might do a vegan diet for a season, and you might do a carnivore diet for a season. I've had patients do that. Some of my patients have come into me and say, oh yeah, when I was on the carnivore diet, I felt great. And then I went on the vegan diet and I felt horrible. I don't know why. They ask me.
Yeah, that's good stuff. All right, we got a few, some more good questions coming in here. So, all right, Sir Charles, can I count the water I use in making my daily smoothie towards the 64 ounces of daily requirement? And let me add, related to that question, you could answer as well. I have a friend who I just spent some time with in Utah with my other entrepreneurial friends, and we were on a hike, and he was telling us how he drinks 400 ounces of water every day. And this guy kind of looks like a Greek god. Like it was pretty funny. We were on this hike, and there's this car driving by, and this guy had his shirt off, and I did not. But this car drives up, and this older guy, he's probably 70, 75 years old. He's like, rolls the window down. His wife's sitting next to him. He's like, excuse me, sir, we're just driving slow by here as we're admiring your physique. So it was pretty funny. But this guy drinks like 400 ounces of water a day. And so what do you recommend about how much water to drink? And then you could also answer his question about whether to include the smoothie, the water in a smoothie for that question.
Okay, the answer is Yes.
All right, next question.
Okay. So also, the amount of water to drink every day is, it's not an amount of water that you need to drink every day. In fact, some people become dehydrated from drinking too much water. There's 3 different kinds of dehydration. There's water dehydration, where you're absolutely deficient in water. There's sodium dehydration, when you don't have enough salt. And there's potassium dehydration. Potassium dehydration is intracellular dehydration. You don't have enough potassium inside your cells. Your cells shrink down because they have to have a certain concentration or nothing works. And then the sodium dehydration is an extracellular dehydration. That's your blood and your fluid plasma in your body, called extracellular fluid. That when you don't have enough salt, then that shrinks down and you have more dehydration. And then there's just pure water dehydration. So we often focus on the water dehydration. And the reason we were told to drink more water is because most Americans eat too much sodium. And so in order for the kidneys to get rid of all that excess sodium, then drinking more water can be helpful to that. Well, one of the problems with that is the kidneys don't function as well. They don't concentrate urine when they need to if you've been running 400 ounces of water through them every day. So again, this is the same with all your supplements, include all your nutrients. Water is just a nutrient. Look at it as just food. You need feast and famine. You need the contrast. You need it. It's really important for functioning. You need a lot of sugar and then none. You need a lot of fat and then none. You need a lot of vitamin C and then none. You need a lot of vitamin D and then none. You need a lot of everything, including water, and then none. You have to have a contrast in order for the body to have homeostasis. Homeostasis does not come by doing the same thing every day. That makes you resistant. That's why with diabetes, you get insulin resistant because the blood sugar is high every day. It's 200. Or if you're in Canada, it's 99999. And what that does is makes you resistant to the sugar. So then your brain starves for sugar in the sea of sugar. It's like there's sugar everywhere, not a drop to make energy in your brain. So, and that's true with everything. The key to then this supplements webinar is feast and famine. You need a lot and then none. So your 1-a-day vitamin has nothing to do with health and everything to do with marketing.
Yep. Well, that's some really good stuff. Wow. Okay. So
that's worth $2 right there, right?
That is. So we had a question about kidneys and protein in the urine, and you had mentioned kidneys, so we'll jump to that one. Sir Charles again. My doctor said I have protein in my urine, so he prescribed lisinopril. Is there a natural remedy I can use instead of taking this medication? Also, this protein in my urine, is this the same test called C-reactive protein test that we talk about in the solution kit?
Okay. Good question. Okay, C-reactive protein, CRP, is just a waste product of an inflammatory process. And it turns out it's not just inflammation. It's cellular distress. When cells are in distress for any reason, they produce this protein that has a waste part called C-reactive protein. So that's an indicator more from anything, and that doesn't have anything to do with the protein in your urine. So the protein in your urine is albumin. That's just the regular protein that helps to keep the water in your blood vessels. And the way it works is this albumin is there all the time. And because you don't have a heart in your feet to push your blood back up to your heart through the veins, you have this albumin protein that kind of pulls the water in, and then you have valves in your veins that keep as you're moving around, keep the blood flowing back up to the heart. So then that allows the circulation to happen, and that's why you have a lot of extra veins. So in the kidney, there is the blood comes in, and then it goes through a filter. The water filters out from the blood, and then the thick blood comes out the other side and then mixes with the water coming back from the kidney. That water that goes through the filter should have no protein in it, none, zero. So it's like your coffee filter. You put the coffee in there, and the water comes in, and the water is supposed to flow through with whatever's dissolved in the water, but you're not supposed to have any grounds. So what happened to your kidneys is somebody came and poked a bunch of holes in your coffee filter. And so now your coffee grounds, the sediment, is getting into your coffee. And that's what's happening in your urine. That sediment, which is protein, the albumin protein, is leaking through those holes in your filter and getting out in your urine. It's not supposed to be there. It's supposed to be all filtered out. So in other words, your filters aren't working. The CinnaPro will not make your filters work better. The best they can do, and this is controversial, it might work, it might not, is to prevent more holes from being made in your filters, in your kidneys. So, so the question you have then is, how can I reverse this process? Okay, getting your blood sugar down to normal. Remember, I was just telling everybody that your brain, when your sugar is high all the time, your brain isn't getting any energy because you become resistant to all that extra sugar that's there constantly. Well, guess what other organ isn't getting enough energy? The kidney. Your kidney is not getting enough energy. It can't repair itself. So that's why you're getting holes in there. These cells have to regenerate. If they can't regenerate, if there's not enough energy around, they're not going to regenerate. So in order for you to repair your cells, you need to get your blood sugar down to normal so you can get sugar into the kidney so it can start functioning again. The problem with kidneys is it's not a sure thing that it's going to come back to normal. So, but you can stop it from getting worse. So the holes that are there, it's like somebody came and poked pinholes in your filter. Those holes might stay there, but if you get a good amount of energy into your kidneys, then you won't make any new holes, and that's really, really important. So getting your kidneys functioning, that's what the diabetes solution kit, the first phase 1, what's the first thing you're doing? You're getting your sugar down from in the 200s, 100s, or 9, 7, 8, 9. You're getting it into 70 to 90, which is, if you're on the other scale, 4 to 5. So when you're on that 70 to 90 range, once you get down there, then your kidneys are going to start functioning again and stop making holes in your filter.
Good. All right. Okay, so James said he missed the amount of vitamin D to take per day. What do you recommend?
Okay. A minimum, I would say about 5,000 units a day. Children can take 5,000 units a day. Adults should be taking around 10,000 units a day. If you go out in the sunshine on a summer day, especially if you're like in Hawaii or something, then you're going to make around 20,000 units, and it only takes about 10 or 15 minutes in the sun to get a significant portion of your skin exposed. So you can make 20,000, 25,000 units a day from sunshine. So think about that when you're taking a supplement. 10,000 units is really half of what you might make from the sun. It's still just a supplemental dose.
So are you saying you're recommending nudism?
No, significant portion. Not all of it.
So you mentioned units, and on our CinnaChroma labels, we used to say 5,000 IUs, international units, but now our labels say 125 micrograms of vitamin D, which I believe is the same amount. So if people... Yeah.
Okay, so 40,000 units is 1 milligram. Just remember that. That's the easy way to measure it. Okay. So 40,000, 1 milligram.
Yeah, okay. Good, good. Okay, somebody else asked if it's okay to double up on the vitamin D they're taking, which they didn't say how much they're taking, so.
Okay, so yeah, if you were doubling up, let's say you were taking 10,000 a day and you were concerned. There have been several studies that have been done in nursing homes. People, when they get sick, they start out with 50,000. This is 1.25 milligrams, 50,000 units once a week. And then when somebody gets sick, they give them 50,000 units, that same dose, 3 days in a row. So that's a large dose, and that works. Good. When they did that study, they had no deaths from influenza.
Okay, so here's another related question with vitamin D from Gary. Thanks, Gary. A recent study in the AMA journal showed that consuming more than the recommended amount of vitamin D in supplements once a day led to reduced bone density. University of Illinois study. Agree with that? And is there a reason why that would happen?
Okay. There are all kinds of studies to prove that this vitamin doesn't work and that vitamin doesn't work. And the question of, does vitamin D increase your bone density? It can help, but it's not the reason you put calcium into your bones. The vitamin D has multiple other effects in the body. Remember, it's a hormone, and it's not so much about bone density. It only became that because of rickets. When people are deficient in vitamin D, they don't absorb calcium, so they end up getting rickets because they're not absorbing calcium. But that doesn't mean that vitamin D just puts calcium on your bones. That's vitamin K. That's why we put vitamin K in with the vitamin D. So they make this study to purposely make it look like, oh, vitamin D is useless. So they do vitamin D and they take all the vitamin K out, so these people aren't getting any vitamin K. They go, look, it doesn't work for bones. Okay, so I'm going to show you the real thing. This is a graph. Okay, this is low vitamin D. This is high vitamin D. So along this scale is low vitamin D to high vitamin D. Okay, this scale is death. Okay, so this is death. So your death rate is really high with low vitamin D. And look how it drops down precipitously as your vitamin D goes up. So if you measure levels and you see this is 30 right here. And this is 140 way over here. So you can see from the graph that vitamin D levels clearly lower your risk of death. And so whatever other crappy studies that they do, look, the reality, this is 27,000 people. This is not a small study. And it's, so just okay, vitamin D works. You know, every study has shown it works. It works for keeping your immune system functional, and that's the main reason we're looking at it. It doesn't work for bone density. Sorry.
Okay, good. Well, and you mentioned vitamin K, and that's one of the reasons why it's in the CinnaChroma formula for that reason.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep. So just a plug here for CinnaChroma. This product right here is the first supplement formulation that Dr. Saunders formulated, and it's got all of the ingredients, the key ingredients of nutrients or minerals that people are deficient on. And if you want some of this, if you don't already have it, go to bartonwebinar.com and find the link at the bottom of the page with CinnaChroma, and just go to the store and you can buy some. And I'll give you a coupon code for watching our webinar here, and it's I think it's Barton25. I believe it's Barton25. You'll save 25% off your order. But Dr. Saunders, could you talked about vitamin D and vitamin K. Seems how this is a supplement seminar. Could you talk about the other 4 ingredients, which would be cinnamon and chromium, and then selenium and vanadium?
Okay, so cinnamon, excuse me, a water extract of cinnamon has several substances in it that help you become more sensitive to insulin. Okay, that's been noted for years. It's been used for years. That's just something that helps. I test people all the time, and I find most people are deficient in chromium. It's a very common deficiency. Chromium, vanadium, selenium. These minerals are hard to get, mostly because the soils don't contain them and plants don't need them. So if your plant is grown on a farm, they're not going to supplement selenium because the plant doesn't need it. The plant can produce beautiful fruit without any selenium at all. We need selenium. If there's selenium in the soil, the plant will bring it up into the plant and make selenomethionine out of it and store it so that when you eat it, you get selenium. But if there's no selenium in the soil, they don't have any and they don't care one way or the other. But that makes us deficient in selenium. So we need selenium because we don't get it. Chromium, again, similar kind of thing. It's a micronutrient that's hard to get, and most people I test are deficient in it. That's why I added that in. And then vanadium also helps the blood sugar. Right? Chromium and vanadium really are important for helping the blood sugar it helps us be more efficient at using our blood sugar because it's part of an enzyme.
Oh, it's frozen. Frozen. Come back, Dr. Saunders. We need you. Unfreeze. Unfreeze, Dr. Saunders. Come back. Well, that didn't work. He'll be back. Hey, I just wanted to say something while he's frozen. This is very interesting. So, CinnaChroma, I was talking to our manufacturer that produces these products. And he said that during the coronavirus, this time, like there's been really big problems shipping supplements from China and India, which is where most ingredients come from. And what they've found when they do the testing for their raw materials, they're finding it's almost impossible to find pure cinnamon right now, as well as pure curcumin or turmeric powder. And what's happening is these people in India and China are taking like 20% of the amount of cinnamon. They're adding cornstarch to make up the difference because there's shortages. So they're able to make 5 times as much product by adding cornstarch, and then they actually paint it red so that it looks like cinnamon. And under a microscope, it's hard to differentiate unless you have a trained eye. So I just want to mention that because our manufacturers have a really solid testing process, and so that all of our products are genuine, pure, 100% what they say is inside of this, where most products on the shelf today are not going to be the case. You're going to probably be taking cornstarch, which it's not going to hurt you any, but you're not getting the actual ingredients that it says in the bottles from a lot of places. So just want you to say you can be sure that our products have 100% of what they say is in it. It's scientifically tested and all that. So just thought that was very interesting. And that's probably going to be the case for a while here, as our world is still upside down with COVID restrictions and all that. So also CinnaChroma, we're actually, I think we might be out of stock or close to it right now. We should be getting a new supply in. Oh, there's Dr. Saunders, but we should be getting
Did you miss me?
Any day. We did miss you. I was just telling him about how, Adam was telling us about how cornstarch is being added to cinnamon and to turmeric. Like they're painting it. They're painting cornstarch to make it look like cinnamon and turmeric. So it's really hard to actually find the pure stuff. And I was just telling him how our stuff is actually the genuine, real deal.
It's real. It's the genuine article. So how far did you get to the chromium, selenium, vanadium?
No, I think we got all of them.
Okay, good.
So that was good. Good timing to fritz out there a little bit.
Okay.
So you showed us that chart on vitamin D, and Grace had a good question. She just had her blood tested. So what is a good range? Is it that 30-40 amount and above?
Oh, optimal range 70 to 90, but 60 to 100 is considered normal. 70 to 90 is the optimum range.
Okay, good. All right. Let's see. Gary said, Gary's the one that mentioned the Calgary study. He said my question was turned around. The Calgary study showed that high doses of vitamin D resulted in a decrease in bone density. See Science Daily, September 3rd, 2019 for summary. This is a 3-year longevity. Vitamin D obviously has other benefits. However, in older adults, it seems to reduce bone density if taken in large amounts. So maybe a little clarity on that. Were you saying that it's because it's missing the vitamin K perhaps, or is bone density not as big of an issue?
No, the point is still there, that it's not about bone density. Vitamin D is not about, people who lose their bone density are not exercising. They may be missing vitamin K too, but you can't put bone on if you're not exercising. That's a requirement. So
it's that impact, right? Like strength.
Yeah, it's that impact. So perhaps, see, I didn't read the study, so I can't speak to the study specifically. So all I can say is vitamin D is not about bone density. So if you see a vitamin D and bone density study, you can say, oh, that's not it's a non sequitur.
Yeah. Okay. So I just gave the information about, the cornstarch and stuff, and Grace asked if we in America are in danger of bad supplements or prescriptions from other countries like China. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's a problem. It's everybody blames China, but it doesn't just come from China. It comes from anywhere in the world that they think they can make money by like putting cornstarch in, putting food coloring in cornstarch to make it look like turmeric, for example, or something like that.
Yeah.
And that doesn't come from China necessarily, wherever. And that can come from the United States. It's not that. I once read a study that was done on brand name supplements. And I'm not going to give you the names, but these were brand name supplements. And if they don't test before and after, then they don't know what's in there. So they say, well, we got this raw material and we divided it up into all these little pills. Therefore, it should have this much of that in it. And very often it doesn't. In New York, they took off the shelf herbs and vitamins and various things and said, look, this doesn't have what it says it's supposed to have in it. And that's a common issue. Another thing is a warehouse manager. So it goes from the manufacturer to the jobber, the warehouse, and then it gets distributed to the distributors, and then it goes to the stores. So it's got several down the chain before the stores actually get it. And sometimes a warehouse manager will take in huge lots of something that has a label on it that says, this is a brand name, the brand name, whatever, that's not that brand name. And that could come from a foreign country or whatever. And so they think they're getting this brand and it's good quality, and it's not. Mm-hmm. So the answer is, yeah, you don't know what you're getting. You really don't. I have, for people who aren't sure and are worried about it, or I have a store on my website that people can go to and they can order it from, and these are tested before and after. So they test the raw materials and then they test the lot of the pills, the individual pills, and say, does this have in it what it's supposed to have in it? So, yeah. So if you look for those that are tested before and after, like the ones we do, the people we work with to make the CinnaChroma and Nervala, they test the raw materials before, and then they test after it's all put together. They take pills out and they dump them out and see if that really has in it what it says it has in it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, led to some delays, to be honest. We've had batches that they found through testing that it didn't have the proper amounts or whatever, and it went back and they had to start over again. And so that causes some delays and things like that. But that shows me at least that that they're testing and being very careful about not putting out bad products. So that was reassuring, even though it kind of stinks that it delays the process so much. So, all right. So we had some other questions come in on the chat. I want to make sure I don't miss that. Okay. So here's a quick one. How much caffeine is there in green tea, and is green tea better than regular tea?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know how much. So the question of is green tea better than black tea? And the answer is probably yes. There's less caffeine in green tea than black tea, and it has more EGCG in it, which it can prevent cancer and catechins in it also. So there are more nutrients as far as nutrition goes in green tea than black tea. So yeah, you know, it does have a little less caffeine. So yeah, but I don't know the amounts exactly.
Yeah. Okay, here's a good final question to end on. I missed a few here, but just for the sake of time, this is a good one. So from Sandra, is there anything that will help me deal with these horrible sugar cravings?
Oh, I'm sorry, Sandra. You know what? I have been a sugar addict since the beginning. You know, when I was a kid, I remember scraping candy off the sidewalk that was melted, half eaten, melted into the sidewalk and eating it. You know, my mom never bought like donuts or cold cereal or anything like that. And I would just crave it. And it took me a long time to deal with that craving and to just say no to sugar. And sometimes, I don't know, you know, I still eat it. My kids brought home some peanut butter sandwich cookies, those cookies. And I haven't had those in, I don't know, 20, 30 years, more, 40 years. And I go, oh, I used to love those things. So I ate one. And I'm glad I did, because I go, that wasn't that good. It wasn't worth it. I don't know. The way that helped me a lot is to have something else. So when I got off of Skittles and all of that stuff, I traded it for raisins because they were still sweet. And then I traded the raisins out for carrots. I had those little baby carrots in my car. So trading it out is really the best way. And you know, that's what's been shown with other things like alcohol and cigarettes. People who are addicted, it needs to be traded for something. You can't just have this emptiness, this void that is left unfilled, because all nature abhors a vacuum. So have something else to fill it. Like if you like carrots or celery or something, crunch on that instead of something sweet.
Yeah, good. Does CinnaChroma, like the cinnamon or chromium, help with sugar cravings at all?
Well, that's interesting. I don't know of any studies on that, but there are studies on people who are low in nutrients get cravings. And so there's one thing called pica, which is people eating inedible stuff. Like you've seen people tear off paper and they start chewing paper. Or my brother used to eat dirt. Literally, he would pick up dirt and he would eat it. He said it smelled so good, and he would eat dirt. People eat like chewing on ice and chewing on their pencils and that kind of stuff. It's called pica, and that very often the cravings are from a deficiency. So perhaps, I don't know of any specific studies, that, you know, if you fill that chromium, vanadium, selenium void, you might go, wow, I don't have as much craving anymore. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, this has been a great call. Covered a lot of different interesting topics and studies and all that. So wear a mask, but more importantly, take your vitamin D. It was a big takeaway that we talked about. Or vitamin D is just way more effective at preventing, really boosting your immune system and preventing any complications from coronavirus. So as we're seeing upticks in cases, which I don't know for sure if there's an actual uptick in cases or if there's an uptick in testing, which is just showing more cases, which is probably the case, pardon the pun. Yeah, keep your vitamin D levels high and be outside, get some exercise, sunshine, supplement. CinnaChroma has it all in there, and so if you have that, take it 1 or 2 a day. And if you have any customer support issues, somebody just mentioned that they had something, shoot an email over to our awesome customer support team. Email address is support@bartonpublishing.com, and they'll be happy to take care of you, answer any questions or any issues in that regard. So yeah, so thanks everybody for joining us. This was a great call. Thank you, Dr. Saunders, for enlightening us and giving us great information and equipping us with the knowledge that we need. So really appreciate it. Thanks, Leslie, for running the controls. And I hope you sell out your clothing, you know, in the background there in your new home. I have to say, Leslie's home, I stopped in the other day and saw their new house, and it was like awesome. It was just fun. They live on an acreage in the country, and it was so cool to see. So I'm excited for them. And feel like you step back in time a little bit. The house is what, 100 years old, but it looks like it's been kept in great condition, and the wallpaper is amazing. So
it is. I tell everyone it almost feels like I'm in a dollhouse.
You are.
Dollhouse. It's cute, and I just love it. It's really fun. So
yeah, and your kids are loving it. So yeah, good stuff. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Great to see you guys on here, and we'll see you next week on Tuesday at noon Central. Take care. God bless everybody. Bye.